Attendees in the gallery, please be advised that your presence may be recorded. I will ask that mobile phones please be switched to silent mode whilst the meeting is taking place. On behalf of Moonee Valley City Council, I would like to respectfully acknowledge the land on which we're meeting, that of the Wurundjeri Wurrung people of the Kulin Nation, and pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging. I'd also like to acknowledge the passing of Uncle Jack Charles, Burrarong and Wiradjuri man, a respected Indigenous elder, musician, actor and absolute advocate for the Indigenous community. Some of you would know Uncle Jack from our most recent healing ceremony earlier this year, where he shared his journey of being a stolen generation survivor. He's worked tirelessly in addressing the issue of Indigenous incarceration, and he's had an involvement in the arts and was the co-founder of the first Indigenous-led theatre group in Melbourne. Uncle Jack was awarded the NAIDOC Male Elder of the Year 2022 and made history this year as the first Indigenous elder to speak at the Victorian Truth-Telling Commission. This is obviously a big loss for the community. I would also like to report that it is with deepest sympathies that I note the passing of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II. On behalf of all councillors and staff at Moonee Valley City Council, we share our condolences to the royal family and pay tribute to a leader who has worked dutifully to the people over the past 70 years. Her character and resilience as monarch through tragedy and triumph are a true reflection of great leadership and her commitment to Australia and the Commonwealth. Her passing will be felt by many of us, and her legacy will continue on in many ways through her contributions. Our respect to the passing of Her Majesty, all councils' flags will be flown at half-mast. We also have a condolence book in the Civic Centre if anyone wishes to sign it. Now, item 2 on the agenda is apologies and leaves of absence, and we do have an apology from Councillor Tyson for tonight's meeting. Who unfortunately cannot join us tonight, and I believe everybody else is here. Item 3 on the agenda is the confirmation of minutes. Councillors, can I please have a mover and seconder that the council minutes held on Tuesday the 23rd of August 2022 be confirmed? Move Councillor Bedio, seconded Councillor Sypek. Put that to the vote. All those in favour? That is carried unanimously. Item 4 on the agenda is the declarations of conflicts of interest. Does any councillor have a conflict of interest on any item on the agenda tonight? Councillor Hodgson.
Thanks, Mayor. I'd like to declare a general conflict of interest in item 9.7, draft graffiti management policy, and written notice with reasons has been provided to the CEO in accordance with Governance Rule 2.2.
Thank you, Councillor Hodgson. Any other councillor? Councillor Bedio.
Thanks, Mayor. I'd like to declare a general conflict of interest on item 10.2. Statement of reasons has been submitted to Governance and the CEO in accordance with Governance rules.
Thank you, Councillor Bedio. Any other councillor? Presentations. Councillors, I do believe we have some presentations tonight. Councillor Hodgson.
Thank you, Mayor, and it's with a heavy heart that once again I want to express our sorrow at the passing of a senior elder of the Wurundjeri Woi-wurrung people, Auntie Margaret Gardner, who passed away a couple of weeks ago. Auntie Margaret was not a household name, but she had a profound impact on the Victorian Aboriginal community through her fierce advocacy for the cultural rights of traditional owners, particularly to their lands and waters. Auntie Margaret was a Wurundjeri, Dja Wurrung, Wamba Wamba, Barapa Barapa and Nura Ilam woman. She spent a lifetime dedicated to establishing legal rights for her family and community, and made a significant contribution to the processes that recognise and enshrine Aboriginal cultural heritage and land rights in Victoria. At Moonee Valley, we are really proud to partner with the Wurundjeri Woi-wurrung Council on all matters that impact their cultural rights on traditional lands. And we wish to acknowledge that this is possible through the efforts of elders of the Wurundjeri Woi-wurrung, and tonight especially acknowledge Auntie Margaret for the battles that she fought and won so that we might benefit from this relationship and the knowledge and protection of country that Wurundjeri Woi-wurrung provide for the benefit of our whole community. We stand on the shoulders of giants, and although she wasn't a very tall woman, Auntie Margaret was a giant of her community. We offer our sincere condolences to Auntie Margaret's family and kin and to the Wurundjeri Woiwurrung Council and community for the loss of their sister and auntie. May she rest easy.
Thank you, Councillor Hodgson. Were there any other presentations?
Thanks, Mayor.
Councillor Bedio.
Back in March, I had the privilege of opening a multi-faith art exhibition that was run by the Interfaith Network of Moonee Valley. The theme for this year was to find out where and how people of faith and non-faith were finding strength, hope and purpose in times of extreme uncertainty, faith in pandemic times. It was a fantastic exhibition and I was so privileged to be there and to officiate and open the exhibition. I'd like to extend my congratulations to Tony DeFazio and the members of the Interfaith Network, alongside all contributing artists, for putting together this fantastic exhibition, and I'm happy to receive this booklet on behalf of Council.
Thank you, Councillor Bedio. Any other presentations? Councillor Hodgson.
Thanks, Mayor. I'd just also like to mention that last week was the 10th National Women's Health Week, the biggest week for women's health and wellbeing in Australia. To celebrate it here at the Civic Centre, we had a lovely morning tea on Tuesday morning with our CEO, Helen Sweet, and about 30 staff members. Women's Health Week is an annual national campaign of events and online activities dedicated to improving women's health and health awareness around all aspects of mental, physical and hormonal health from puberty to older age. For 1 week a year, Women's Health Week is a reminder for all women and girls to set aside some time for their own health and wellbeing, to make an appointment for a health check, get active, join an event or simply connect with other women, just like our staff did last week. Everyone who attended the morning tea took away a gorgeous event bag, like this one, provided for free by Jean Hales for Women's Health, the organisation behind Women's Health Week. So you might ask, why is there a special week to highlight the importance of women's health? Well, women are traditionally the nurturers and carers, and we all know a woman who is always putting herself last and looking after everyone else first. There's probably 1 or 2 or even 6 or 7 of them here in the room tonight. That's why Women's Health Week is here, to remind women that it's okay to put themselves first for a change. You can still visit womenshealthweek.com.au to catch up on the great evidence-based health information that Jean House presented each day.
Thank you, Councillor Hodgson. Any other presentations? Councillor Adams.
Thank you, Mayor. On Sunday, I attended a planting day with yourself at Glenbervie Station in Essendon, which coincided to the day, the official opening of the station exactly 100 years ago in 1922. Special thanks to Theresa Day and the Glenbervie stationeers, who were supported by Moonee Valley Sustainability, that planted 700 trees and tube stock thanks to a grant from Moonee Valley City Council. It was a wonderful community event that was attended by State MPs Ben Carroll and Danny Pearson. I was particularly delighted to hear Anne from the Essendon Historical Society speak about the substantial history of Glenbervie Station, with a timeline dating back 150 years. Thank you to all the fantastic volunteers that turned up on the day. The station is looking very beautiful. Well done to everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Adams. Any other presentations? Councillor Iso.
Thanks, Mayor. I've just got 2 brief presentations. The first one is that on Thursday, yourself and Councillor Adams and myself, and I think Councillor Hodgson had planned to come but wasn't able to make it in the end, we attended the Advancing Women's Leadership Summit, which was held by the Gender Equality Advisory Committee, which is chaired by MPs Juliana Addison and Kat Theophanous. We were greatly fortunate to listen to the Honourable Julia Gillard speak to us almost for an hour, I think. She gave us a speech that was, her 20-minute speech was delivered without notes, flawlessly. It was a lesson in itself into just brilliant presentation. And she set the tone for a really fulsome day of discussions, conversations about strategies to achieve gender equality in local government, and also how to make local government a safe environment for staff and for councillors. So lucky to be able to participate in that and in that professional development. The second presentation, I'd just like to acknowledge the really fantastic work of Moonee Valley Sustainability and all of the volunteers and helpers for the Efficient Electric Home Expo that was held at Woodlands Park on Saturday. I think that one of the exhibitors, in fact, gave Moonee Valley Sustainability the feedback that, and I don't know if they were a solar exhibitor or an induction cooking exhibitor, I'm not sure, but they gave the feedback that they've been to multiple exhibitions over many years, and this was one of the best experiences they've ever had in terms of organisation, also in terms of community interest, and in terms of I guess they felt as though the whole day was just run by a community of volunteers who, out of their own goodwill, put together a fantastic exhibition for people to learn how to go electric. I think it was Councillor Hodgson, yourself and myself, Mayor, we did look at the induction cook-off to see which of the hot plates was the best and most efficient at boiling water, and I think we learnt that the cheap induction portable from IKEA was faster than the hot plate and the more expensive induction cooker. So lots of lessons were learnt at the expo, and I hope that everyone who attended took away some ideas as to how to make their home more efficient. And thanks again to Moonee Valley Sustainability for organising it.
Thank you, Councillor Isa. Were there any further presentations for tonight? No, I do have one, and it's in relation to St Andrew's Kindergarten. Recently I attended a meeting of parents from St Andrew's Kindergarten who have been told after 75 years the kinder will be closing from next year. St Andrews is not a council-owned facility but a kindergarten run by a non-for-profit organisation in partnership with Volunteer Parent Committee and Parish Council. However, St Andrews Kindergarten do use the municipal central enrolment system administered by council to secure enrolments. I'd like to say how disappointed I am that the decision has been made, particularly as council was not informed beforehand, which meant children were offered places via our municipal central enrolment system. In fact, St Andrews Kindergarten advised us to offer places at this site under the impression the lease with the church was secure for 2023. It was just over 5 years ago that St Andrews received a substantial grant to upgrade the facility thanks to the state government. There's obviously many people who feel that this wasn't a great investment now, for it hasn't been used for many years. We have received correspondence from the church which suggests that council was partially to blame for the closure because a few years ago we did not approve their plans to build a childcare centre, and I just wanted to correct this on the public record. In 2020, the church applied for demolition of an existing building and construction of buildings and works in a heritage overlay, use as a childcare centre and reduction in car parking requirements. This was for a 118-place childcare centre. At the time, local residents were vocal, very vocal, in objecting to increased traffic and the impact on the surrounding streets. In contrast, local residents have always been very supportive of the kindergarten. For those residents who may not be aware, there is a very big difference between childcare and kindergarten across sites. So the main difference is the traffic and operating hours between kindergartens and childcare centres. For example, kindergarten families come in bigger groups, normally at one time, normally at 8:30 and then again at 4 p.m. Childcare families can come and go any time of the day, with a bulk probably between 6 a.m. and 9 a.m. and then at the end of the day between 4 and 6 p.m. The current kinder would only have 33 maximum families arriving and departing at one time. The proposed childcare service was going to be licensed for 118 children, a significant increase to the traffic and potential parking problems to this local residential street. Childcare operating hours are usually 6 a.m. to 6 p.m, and this occurs 52 weeks of the year. This would have been a change for the local residents from the current kindergarten only operating 40 weeks per year, likely from 8:30 till 4. In saying all of that, council officers are now working with the displaced families to ensure the children can potentially all secure a place elsewhere next year. We are also keen to continue to work with the parish. However, the decision to close after offering places to excited young children and families for 2023 was unfortunately not well done, and I would encourage the parish to please reflect on the impact of the closure of this very much loved kinder and the lovely start to education it has provided for generations. A longer, better planned farewell and notice to the community would be a bit more respectful and worthy of such a cherished local facility. Thank you. We now moved on to item 6 on the agenda, which is petitions and joint letters. Councillors, I don't believe we have any. No. Item 7 is public question time, and we have received one this evening. The question is from Sue O'Reilly, who has advised that she will not be with us in attendance and to read out her question. So thank you for submitting your question, Sue. The question reads, Milverton Street has recently been added under a heritage overlay. However, there is an empty block attached to 12 Milverton Street that has had a temporary fence for over 5 years. It is unsightly and diminishes the streetscape, and there have been numerous complaints made to the council by residents over the years. With the new heritage controls in place, is the council able to implement a requirement for an appropriate fence to be built that will suit the streetscape? And I will pass to the CEO, Helen, for a response.
Thank you, Sue. Sue the Mayor, the heritage controls do not provide the council with any power to require a property owner to install fencing. If a property owner applies and a planning permit is required to construct a fence, the planning scheme and the relevant heritage controls enable council to consider and approve the height, style, and appearance of the fence. Separate to council's powers under the planning scheme, council has power under its local law to manage and approve the appearance of temporary fencing. Council officers will inspect the property and action as appropriate. Thank you.
Thank you, CEO. And thank you, Sue, for your question. Item 8 on the agenda is reports from delegates. Do we have any delegate reports this evening? No. In that case, we will move to item 9 on the agenda, which is 9.1, 25 Pearl Street, Niddrie. Lot 1 on title plan 434799N, MV-36-2021-A, construction of 3 dwellings. Councillors, do I have a motion? Councillor Isa.
Mayor, I'd like to move an alternative that reads that council issues a notice of decision to refuse to grant an amended permit in relation to planning permit application number MV/36/2021/A at 25 Pearl Street, Niddrie, in brackets lot 1 on title plan 434799, capital N, close brackets, for the construction of 3 dwellings, comma, in accordance with the following ground of refusal. The proposal fails to comply with the decision guidelines found at clause 65.01 of the Moonee Valley Planning Scheme, as it has an effect on the vegetation and associated amenity of adjoining properties.
Thank you, Councillor Isa. Is there a seconder for that motion? I will call again for a seconder for the motion, or it will lapse. No? Okay, well, I'll deem that lapsed. As it is a planning application, I can call again. So I will call for another motion for 9.1, 25 Pearl Street, Niddrie. Councillor Bedio.
Mayor, I'll move the officer's recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Bedio. And a seconder, Councillor Hodgson. Councillor Bedio, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thanks, Mayor. This application is for a Section 72 amendment to a planning permit application that I believe came before Council this year. The proposed amendments are some alterations to setbacks and compliance to certain permit conditions. The officer's assessment shows that the development still retains a good response to res code, that it's in line with neighbourhood character, and I really can't see any reason that we should be refusing this application, so I'm happy to support the officer's recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Bedio. Councillor Hodgson.
Thanks, Mayor. Yeah, when this one did come to us for council decision previously, it was a contentious one, and I do recall that the debate was reasonably lengthy. The decision in the end was to condition reasonably heavily the application and to require additional setbacks for the first levels amongst numerous conditions to bring the permit into closer compliance with our planning scheme. Given that permit has been granted and the changes that have been requested do, from our office's recommendation, can be viewed as an improvement on even the existing permit that's been granted, with additional, alterations to the setback and requirement for an arborist report on the health of the trees, which I know there's been some discussion in from the neighbours and as part of the objections that were received for this application. I support the officer's recommendation to allow this amendment to the current permit conditions.
Thank you, Councillor Hodgson. Would anybody else like to speak on this motion? Councillor Isa.
Just very briefly, I do acknowledge that Councillor Tyson isn't here tonight, and I know that he wished to move a refusal, and I was very very happy to move the refusal on his behalf. So I just wanted to acknowledge that was one of the reasons for moving the refusal tonight. I note that the amendment, so that there's some difficulties with respect to the trees, and that there's some kind of dispute about those, which I don't want to elaborate on, but I just want to acknowledge that sometimes planning applications can lead to those sorts of disputes between neighbours, and sometimes that gives grounds for planning refusal, sometimes it doesn't, but I just hope that in this case, wherever this ends up, whether it's at VCAT or not, I just hope that the neighbours can find a way to resolve the matter that's under some dispute. I guess that's all I wanted to say. Thanks, Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Isa. Any other councillor? Councillor Bedio, would you like to close?
Look, I'll just add that I think that the amendment actually provides a better outcome than the initial application did, and therefore if we were to refuse this application and it were to go to VCAT, we would look silly because we've approved the substantive permit, and while there are some minor amendments to setback, overall it's an improvement on the development. So I would urge fellow councillors to support the officer's recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Bedio. I will put that to the vote. All those in favour? That is Councillor Sharp, Councillor Nation, Councillor Adams, Councillor Bedio, Councillor Hodgson, Councillor Isa, and all those against is Councillor Byrne. That motion is carried. Item 9.2 on the agenda is endorsement of community consultation for the naming of the new facility at Devany's Park, Flemington. Councillors, do I have a motion? Councillor Isa.
I'd like to move the officer's recommendation. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Isa. And a seconder? Councillor Bedio. Councillor Isa, would you like to speak to the motion?
Sorry, Mayor, I've just got various things going on all at the one time. I would like to speak to the motion. Look, this is a really exciting opportunity that we have here to name the new facility at Devany's Park. And it's the first time that we're going to be, I guess, using a process of really prioritising Woiwurrung language in our naming. So it is incorporating, I guess, some new elements to the process, which hopefully the community of Flemington will embrace as something that I know is a priority for many of us in the Moonee ward. Look, Council has several internal policies and strategies that do outline preferred types of names for our facilities. And we also, one of the points of the MV 2040, I think it's 17.1.3 or 3.1, and the draft reconciliation plan also are guiding us in this direction of looking at names that incorporate Woiwurrung language. The state government's naming rules also include a preference for the use of Aboriginal language. So 17.2.3 actually in MV 2040 is to work collaboratively with Wurundjeri Council to develop Wurundjeri interpretive signage and Woiwurrung language signs across Moonee Valley's buildings, open spaces and parkland. So this new community facility will be the first major build with a proposed new official name aimed at bringing these policies to life, and this strategic objective of recognising traditional culture and language. And on another day where we're mourning the loss of such a wonderful Indigenous elder in Uncle Jack Charles, it does seem fitting to be putting this forward as something new that we're doing at Moonee Valley. What this does mean is a slightly different process, which starts this time with an internal process of consultation with Wurundjeri elders and receiving some suggestions for preferred names from the Wurundjeri Heritage Council. So that's been undertaken and 2 names have been put forward. We've then been careful to follow the new rules, the 2022 rules, for naming rules, to make sure that we are appropriately fulfilling all of the requirements under those rules. And I had a little look at them today. It's quite a lengthy document, and from what I could tell, I think we're fulfilling all of the criteria. Principle E is the recognition and use of traditional owner languages, and this gives us an opportunity to restore traditional owner names or to incorporate traditional owner language, and to increase the knowledge and understanding for the whole community about the connection of traditional owners with country. So, should this motion be carried this evening, there will be public consultation for 30 days as specified by the naming rules to understand the wider community preference and to receive any other feedback and comments. This will largely be via the Your Say page, and to this we're also attaching a frequently asked questions attachment to help explain this further for community members so that you can understand the rationale for this approach. And there will also be some face-to-face consultation sessions with community groups and the general public around Flemington. So would invite all members of the community to get involved in this process and give some feedback, and to, as I say, embrace this opportunity to engage in this process of using Woiwurrung language for the first time in our naming processes. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Isa. Councillor Bedio.
Thanks, Mayor. Not much more to add other than I'm very supportive of the incorporation of Woiwurrung language, and thank you to the officers and the Wurundjeri Council for working together to formulate these concepts. I'm really excited to explore the use of Woiwurrung language more within our council, not just for buildings but in documents in all public places. So I think this is a great step.
Thank you, Councillor Bedio. Any other councillor? Councillor Hodgson.
Thank you, Mayor, and thanks, Councillor Isa and Bedio. I am also really excited about this opportunity. I think, we understand and have recently had conversations within Council about the use of Aboriginal language and embedding some of these words and Woiwurrung words in the things that we're doing. I think Aboriginal language has the potential to introduce cultural concepts that don't have literal translations in English, and I think it also serves for that reason to build a stronger bridge between our cultures. So it's a really exciting opportunity. I know that there will be opportunities to explore with the community whichever name is chosen finally, to help the community to understand the translation of these words and where it comes from and the significance. So I'm looking forward to hearing people's feedback on the preferred choice.
Thank you, Councillor Hodgson. Any other councillor? Councillor Nation.
Thanks, Mayor. Look, happy to support, and just wanted to note that I think this will be one of the first buildings or anything that we've named after the changes to the review and update of the Geographic Place Names Act. And us as a council have over the years, been trying to lobby Geographic Names Victoria and the state government about their outdated and archaic old set of rules under the 1998 Geographic Place Names Act. I had a notice of motion that was to write specifically because the previous rules said that the names had to be simple to spell, and therefore it actually meant it was difficult for councils or bodies to name or use Wurundjeri language or use multicultural names because they don't necessarily follow that definition under Geographic Place Names aims of being common or easy to spell. We also, as a council, submitted as part of the review of the Geographic Place Names Act similar feedback, and also championed the concept of more names to be named after women. There's only 8 streets in our municipality that actually bear prominent female names that aren't just generic female names. So I'm excited that this building will be completed and those changes have been made so we can actually complete a naming that is compliant with the new the update to the Act. And I also think it's good that we've taken that first step of consulting with the Wurundjeri Council and actually getting names, because as many government authorities and bodies have found in the past, if you put it out to the people, then often the names that come up are like Boaty McBoatface, or there is a list that is too long. So I'm glad we've taken that first step. And if the public want to get involved and look on that your say, please do have your say. And hopefully this is the first of many either buildings or roads or laneways that we can start to incorporate some more Wurundjeri language. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Nation. Any other councillor? Councillor Isa, would you like to close? No. I will put that to the vote. All those in favour? That is carried unanimously. Item 9.3 on the agenda is the community engagement model and community reference groups. Councillors, do I have a motion? Councillor Isa.
I'd like to move an alternative motion, Mayor. The Council resolves to A, develop an ongoing Moonee Valley Community Advisory Panel, that is reflective of the diverse community of Moonee Valley, to engage about the key policies of Council. B, establish the Multilingual Reference Group to help inform Council's approach to communications and activities and ensure they reflect the diversity of Council's community and the different abilities, languages, tools and access preferences of the community. C, incorporate community engagement regarding sustainable transport into the draft terms of reference of the Community Carbon Emissions Reduction Task Force to be considered by Council. D, improve engagement with stakeholders and community groups to plan for an increased active travel in Moonee Valley, including bicycle users groups and local communities through the local area traffic management plans, and review the potential value of an active transport advisory group as part of the 2023-24 budget process. E, request the terms of reference for the Moonee Valley Community Advisory Panel, Multilingual Reference Group and Community Carbon Emissions Reduction Task Force be brought to Council for endorsement.
Thank you, Councillor Isa. That is moved. Do I have a seconder for that motion? Councillor Adams. Councillor Isa, would you like to speak to the motion?
Sorry, Mayor, I was just going to double check and just make sure that was all okay. It looks...
I was following it.
Looks right. Okay. Thanks, Mayor. The report notes, and thanks very much to officers for bringing the report back. I know that it arises from a couple of motions or amendments and things that I've made throughout the year, so I really appreciate the work of officers to bring this together into this report and to discuss this with us. The report reflects on the increased expectations of the Local Government Act in 2020 to improving community engagement processes to inform Council's decision making, and that is a real emphasis, a really changed emphasis in the new Local Government Act. And so it's been interesting and to try to find ways to enact that in Moonee Valley Council, because I think without the portfolios, without the packs, we know that there are, and a report recently showed us that there are a number of different advisory groups. I feel, and I don't think I'm alone in this, that there has been a little bit of loss of connection with community groups advising council in a number of different ways. So I'm really excited that we are developing some more groups to have that really higher level of engagement by the community in council, and that I know that level of engagement really leads to higher confidence and trust in decision makers and better informed decision making. So this motion has 4 groups refers to 4 groups: the Community Advisory Panel, Multilingual Reference Group, Community Carbon Emissions Reduction Task Force, and a potential future Active Transport Advisory Group. Each of these offers increased opportunities for community input and for more informed decision making by council. To be sure that we really have the structures of those groups right, and that we're all supportive as a council of those groups, the motion also asks for terms of reference to come to council for an endorsement. And I know that this is not what the officers had necessarily recommended, but I think that for us to really give those groups that value and status they deserve, we really need to make sure the terms of reference are things that we as a council are really supportive of and comfortable with. We want the groups to be effective. We have a real stake in ensuring that they're established in a really meaningful way. Also take note of the budget constraints and the officers' suggestions that the Active Transport Group taking note of budget constraints and officers' suggestions. I'm also the motion also notes that the Active Transport Group could perhaps be considered as part of budget discussions for next year to pace the resources that we might be putting towards the different groups. And just a final note on the Multilingual Reference Group and why, because someone did ask me why this isn't referred to as a multicultural reference group and why the focus on multilingual. And I just wanted to add to the discussion that this focus on language actually aligns with my recent PhD work that really explores, among other things, the ways in which, through Australian history, languages played a really assimilating role, such that despite our multicultural makeup, we've asserted a common language in the chosen model of multiculturalism. And through policies such as the White Australia policy, languages acted as a threshold for inclusion and Australian membership, embodying cultural discrimination and representing a proxy for racism. So a recognition of language diversity and enacting greater language pluralism is therefore a tangible means of addressing cultural discrimination and racism. And I'll leave it there. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Isa. Councillor Adams.
Thanks, Mayor. Nothing much further to add. Community consultation is a really important component of informing council's decision-making processes, and I'm hoping with these initiatives and improvements and streamlining for efficiency, we engage more of our community and capture diverse views that will inform council when making decisions and ultimately make for stronger decision outcomes. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Adams. Any other councillor? Councillor Hodgson.
Thanks, Mayor. I'm really happy to support this and with the addition of terms of reference coming to us for endorsement. I think we all have an interest in ensuring that the way that we are engaging with our community is making the most of all of the people involved in council decision making, and that's our officers, our councillors, and most critically our community in this type of forum. And we want to make sure that however that's reflected, and our council, I think all credit to our CEO, our staff have been building their understanding and capability in the realm of consultation, and we've had some really great examples of deliberative engagement in some of our recent policy making, the biggest one being our council plan. And we want to see that grow. We want to make sure that we're being effective, and we want to make sure that we're making the best use of the expertise and the time of people in the community who are willing to participate in these sorts of forums to get the most out of them. So really happy to support this one.
Thank you, Councillor Hodgson. Any other councillor? Councillor Sypek.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm happy to support this as well. As being a child of migration, I came to Australia in the 60s and didn't speak a word of English, but I learnt English. And it's been absolutely a fantastic trip for me, as is probably for a lot of other families who are bilingual, multilingual, whatever. So I look forward to this coming to fruition, but I also err on the side of caution as well. And as much as I think these groups will work, I just hope that the usual suspects over the last 20 years don't keep putting their hands up for this. I'd like to see fresh faces. I'd like to see new faces. I'd like to see diversity in these groups, not just all, one of, single-minded or single way of thinking. I want to see diversity. I want to see all genders. I want to see all age groups and all different language and multilingual groups throughout this whole thing, but rather not just the same people that keep applying for these jobs. We need fresh faces, fresh ideas, and I think that way this will progress.
Thank you, Councillor Sypek. Any other councillor? Councillor Isa, would you like to close?
Thanks, Mayor. Look, just briefly, everyone's welcome to apply for the groups and hopefully capture people from all across the municipality with a wide range of interests, ages, demographics. And just to pick up, I guess, on something that you were saying, Councillor Sypek, it's interesting because the Community Advisory Panel, my understanding of that, and this is why I'm also keen to see the terms of reference just to check that my understanding is right, that because in a sense we're an elected community advisory group. We're kind of the democratically elected community advisory group, but we don't necessarily represent the diversity of our community. We don't have wide cultural diversity. I guess we've got an age range and a gender range, but there are some other things that we don't necessarily represent across our community. So my understanding is that the Community Advisory Panel is an opportunity for us to fill some of those gaps and to try and find some voices that are not represented by us here at the table or in other ways, in other engagement opportunities that we present. So I'm looking forward to seeing the terms of reference and looking forward to seeing the expressions of interest that come forth and seeing these groups in action. Thanks.
Thank you. I will put that to the vote. All those in favour? That is carried unanimously. Item 9.4 on the agenda is the summary of applications for solar panels in heritage overlay areas over the past 12 months. Councillors, do I have a motion? Councillor Hodgson.
Thanks, Mayor. I'll move the officer's recommendation.
Thank you. And a seconder? Councillor Isa. Councillor Hodgson, would you like to speak to the motion?
Mayor, this is a report that is coming back to us at the request of the last time we discussed solar panels in heritage areas, just reflecting on 12 months of this being in practice. I think the report outlines quite well how some of the steps that have been taken as a result of the earlier resolutions of council have made it a little bit easier for people who are living in a heritage overlay to understand the requirements around putting solar panels on their properties. Successfully has seen 11 applications approved for solar panels to go onto houses in a heritage overlay area, and has also noted that the cost to council for removing any application fee for putting a solar panel for an application that's solely to put solar panels on a heritage home is pretty negligible, and we are able to waive that total fee for the planning permits as a result, to make sure that it's removing that final barrier for people wanting to take this step. It's a really positive step. It's going to help our community to reduce their own emissions, and I'm fully supportive.
Thank you, Councillor Hodgson. Councillor Isa.
Thanks, Mayor, and thanks so much to the officers for bringing this together. Thanks particularly to whoever has designed the fantastic new website. I don't know if other councillors have gone on to see the new the way it's presented, the new guidelines. It couldn't be better. It's absolutely exemplary. I think we could share that widely, and I think we've created a real model of excellence with respect to the way that guidance is now presented to people. And I don't know whether that's fed into the fact that we've had this real uplift in numbers of applications. Hopefully it has. It's made it easier for people to understand what's allowed, what needs a permit, what doesn't need a permit. It's really anyone who lives in a heritage overlay area who's been wanting to put on solar panels but hasn't known whether they can or can't, I just encourage you to jump onto the website and go through the different stages of information. What this report's then also doing is waiving fees that might be attached to seeking additional information if you're still not quite sure, or if you do need to apply for a permit because of the way that you want to orientate the panels. Look, I think the proof's in the pudding on this one. We've seen a almost tripling of applications, no rejections. That's excellent news, and I know that one of the things that we've been watching is that our rate of solar panels in Moonee Valley has been below average. I think it was 12% last time I looked. Hopefully it's gone up closer to the 20 or 26% average, I think, or maybe it's 20% average. Yeah, look, thanks again to the officers for fulfilling those different stages of the July report. Really pleasing. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Isa. Any other councillor? Councillor Bedio.
Thanks, Mayor. I guess obviously I'm happy to support this motion. I guess I do have questions as to whether the increase in the applications for solar and heritage is because we keep throwing heritage overlays on. I think in the last year or so we've put another couple thousand houses under a heritage overlay. What I would like to see, and I agree with Councillor Isa, the webpage that we put together to support people in following the planning processes for a heritage overlay should extend to more than just solar panels. I think, I constantly get constituents asking me how they can fix their front fence in a heritage overlay. There's lots of little things that I find are quite confusing in a heritage overlay. And, we have recently been putting more houses under the overlay, so I think we need to streamline all processes for permits in these overlays, and I think this is a great way to do it. So I'm supportive of this, great work from the officers, but I think we need to continue doing this for other types of applications in the heritage overlays.
Thanks, Councillor Bedio. Any other councillor? Councillor Hodgson, would you like to close? No, I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? That is carried unanimously. Item 9.5 on the agenda is the award of contract number 203184, provision of an at-call hard and green waste collection service. Councillors, do I have a motion? Councillor Hodgson.
Thanks, Mayor. I'd like to move the officer's recommendation with an additional point D to read, refer any future option to extension of contracts to a future council meeting.
Thank you, Councillor Hodgson. And a seconder for that motion. Councillor Isa. Councillor Hodgson, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thanks, Mayor. This is a motion which seeks council endorsement to award a contract for the at-call hard and green waste collection service. So residents are entitled to 2 call-outs a year for picking up hard and green waste. Or 1 if you have a particularly big spring clean-out. And just due to our delegations, it's required to come to council decision because of the size of the contract. A very extensive a process has been undertaken. It's met all of our requirements under procurement policies and probity, and there was a clear recommended successful tenderer in Cleanaway Proprietary Limited. So the officers have recommended awarding the contract to that business. The amendment is so the contract is for an initial 4-year period with the option for 2 further 1-year periods extension, and the amendment is just to request that those options to extend come to Council for a decision.
Thank you, Councillor Hodgson. Councillor Isa.
Thanks, Mayor. Look, I'm happy to second the motion here. Look, obviously waste and hard waste and green waste are really important parts of our sustainability efforts, and I know that the officers have made efforts to make sure that our requirements around sustainability and recycling are reasonably high. I guess I'd always like to see us stretching ourselves in that regard and making sure that our expectations of our contractors are as reasonably high as we can possibly push for, so that we can continue to appropriately steer green waste and hard waste in directions that reuse or recycle, and in the direction of our FOGO push. But I'm happy to accept that officers have done their best in this instance, and just hope that we can continue to try to, as I say, push ourselves to do as best we can. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Isa. Would anybody else like to speak on this motion? Councillor Nation.
Thanks, Mayor. And look, I'll echo Councillor Isa's words, and I did raise them in the briefing last week, that I guess my concerns regarding this tender are not with the actual tender process per se, but the evaluation criteria, and I think it's probably something that needs to be updated. I believe this is a similar tender evaluation criteria to last time this came before us, and the main concern for me is that the evaluation doesn't really look at where the products that are collected, the items that are collected, end up. There are some, I guess, positive affirmations about commitments by the tenderers and what they say will happen, but these things aren't going to be written into a contract, and they're not necessarily fleshed out in the tender process. And I think you look at the criteria, and this is obviously in the public report, not in any of the confidential docs, that has the impact, in essence, the environmental impact only being 10%. And I guess if we're looking and we're serious about trying to reduce our community's footprint, not just our council footprint, but our community's footprint, particularly when it comes to waste, and try to encourage recycling, then we probably need to put that environmental impact more than 10% of the criteria, and who knows, maybe greater than price, because at the end of the day, we need to actually, we can't just be defaulting to yes, but it's going to be too expensive, so price wins out. The other thing I'd like to see is in future tender evaluation panels actually have an environmental officer on the evaluation panel as well. The Coordinator of Strategic Waste and Education was on the panel, but it would be great to also have someone either external or from our environmental team to actually sit on the panel as well, and give it that extra diversity in the assessment. So yeah, I think we need to look at how we do these evaluations and look at the importance of actually tweaking criterias to ensure that we're ending up with the the outcome that we champion so much in so many of our other areas of council and in MV 2040. I'm also happy to foreshadow the officer's recommendation if this doesn't succeed.
Thank you, Councillor Nation. Would any other councillor like to speak on this motion? No. Councillor Hodgson.
Thanks, Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Isa and Councillor Nation, for those comments. I do agree, and I think that, you know, we've just recently seen the Circular Economy Waste Reduction and Recycling Bill pass, which is going to drive, I think, what was already a pretty rapidly evolving industry of waste and the moving towards a circular economy. So as those technologies advance, perhaps, you know, in 4 years' time, when we are considering whether or not to extend this contract, there might be more options available to us and opportunities for us to take some bold steps if it's still a question of cost, as Councillor Nation was indicating, or you know, some innovative options. And I know that we are working with other councils in similar situations on you know, bulk procurement efforts and things that might make costs come down, and, you know, new ideas and new technologies viable for local government. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Hodgson. I will put that to the vote. All those in favour? That is Councillor Sharp, Councillor Adams, Councillor Bettio, Councillor Hodgson, Councillor Isa, Councillor Byrne. All those against is Councillor Sypek, Councillor Nation. That motion is carried. Item 9.6 on the agenda is the award of contract number 203145, Asphalt Maintenance Services 2022 to 2025. Councillors, do I have a motion? Councillor Hodgson.
Thanks, Mayor. I'd like to move the officer's recommendation with an additional point D to read, refer any future option to extension of contract to a future council meeting.
Thank you, Councillor Hodgson. A seconder. Councillor Isa. Councillor Hodgson, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor. Again, this is awarding a contract for some of our regular maintenance services for asphalt maintenance and repair of roads and footpaths, something that we is an essential service we provide to our community, and often I'm sure that people wish we did more of. The recommendation is to award a panel of suppliers, so 3 successful tenderers. We do this just because most of the suppliers that we use, you know, subject to availability, if one isn't able to attend to urgent repairs, that we have sort of some options. Unfortunately, in this one, the successful tenderers were not local businesses, but we always strive to support local businesses when we can, when their tenders are competitive. And in this case, you know, none of the tenderers came from local business areas, so none achieved that bonus score. Nonetheless, there's some great value for money to be seen there, as you'll see with the tendering scores, and I'm happy to support this recommendation, again with the same caveat of that coming back to council for the option to extend any contract.
Thank you, Councillor Hodgson. Councillor Isa.
Thanks, Mayor. Look, these are not small contracts, and I know that our officers do spend a great deal of effort to try to balance value for money against other aspirations, such as environmental aspirations. Asphalt's not exactly high on the environmentally sound list, but all tenderers were required to respond to considerations in that regard. I think it is important that council weigh in at the end of the the first period, and as Councillor Hodgson mentioned before, if there's opportunities or necessity, in fact, to adjust things, I think it's important that we do have some input into that. As I say, these are not small contracts, and I want to make sure that we're getting value for money for residents, as well as good service and, so I repeat, meeting environmental aspirations, realising those as best we can. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Isa. Any other councillor? Councillor Nation.
Just wanted to foreshadow the officer's recommendation if this doesn't get up.
Thank you, Councillor Nation. Would any other councillor like to speak to this motion? Councillor Hodgson, would you like to close? I will put that to the vote. All those in favour? Is Councillor Sharp, Councillor Adams, Councillor Hodgson, Councillor Isa, Councillor Byrne. All those against? Councillor Sypek, Councillor Nation, Councillor Bedio. That motion is carried. Item 9.7 is the draft graffiti management policy. Councillor Hodgson at the start of the meeting declared a conflict of interest on this item, so she will be stepping out at the moment. We'll just wait for Councillor Hodgson to vacate the chamber. Okay, item 9.7 on the agenda, draft graffiti management policy. Councillors, do I have a motion? Councillor Isa.
The officer's recommendation, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Isa. A seconder, Councillor Bedio. Councillor Isa, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yeah, look, I'm really happy to share around the moving and seconding if other people want to take that on. I don't like speaking too much at council meetings, despite what it seems. But this...
Sorry, Councillor Sypek, please. Councillor Isa, can you please continue? Thank you. Councillor Isa, the motion has been moved and seconded. Would you like to speak on it? Would you like an adjournment, Councillor Isa? Sure. Streaming, sorry, you just cut out there. Councillor Isa has moved a motion and Councillor Bedio has second. And Councillor Isa, we can start your time again if you want to start your speech. Thank you.
So we've been waiting for some time for the graffiti policy to come back to us. So I'm very grateful for the work that officers have been doing in the background to respond to some feedback that we were trying to look to take a more supportive approach to graffiti, such that victims of graffiti didn't feel as though if they had their house graffiti scrawled across their house, the next thing they knew was getting a fine from council for not removing it. We did feel that this was not sensitive to the fact that the person who's had the graffiti scrawled on their property is not the criminal, or not taking, not the ones who are taking action that's contrary to the local laws. It's And so this particular approach is trying to recognise that and instead take a more supportive angle whereby people are provided with graffiti removal kits if they need them, advice on how to remove graffiti, paint vouchers, and as a last resort, enforcement if all efforts made to help people remove graffiti aren't taken up. This is going out for consultation. Again, it will be on the Council's Your Say website for 4 weeks. There's also going to be some consultation with local businesses who are unfortunately often the victims of pretty unsightly tagging and graffiti, and frustrated often that there's not support for them to get rid of it. So please have your say. Let us know whether you think it balances all interests. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Isa. Councillor Bedio.
Thanks, Mayor. Thanks, Councillor Isa. This particular policy amendment or particular policy that's come to us is something that I'm really proud of. A draft policy came to us last year and it was pretty unanimous in support from Council in terms of feedback that in general, and working with the community and working with constituents, that we need to take a more supportive tone and that we need to maybe pull back a little bit on being too punitive in our enforcement. And I think officers have done a remarkable job in reshaping this policy and forming it into something that's more about supporting our community to comply or supporting our community to support in amenity. And I would love for us to lead the way in amending all other policies to correct this tone, because I think potentially that's the reason why councils often get a bad rap. We're seen as being too heavy-handed. We're seen as being the bad guys in certain situations when we should be working with the community for the betterment of the community. So this is something that I'm really proud of. It's something that I'm going to continue to push with other policies, whether that's for residential, for business. I think we need to be working with the community to support compliance as opposed to being heavy-handed in fines and enforcement. So I'm happy to support this, and well done to officers.
Thank you, Councillor Bedio. Would any other councillor like to speak to this motion? Councillor Nation.
Thanks, Mayor, and I concur that it's a great draft policy, and there's been a considerable amount of time and hours and different personnel involved in getting it to this point, and I think it does take that onus off, in essence, the victims of people vandalising their properties to be threatened with a fine and 14 days to clean it up. And I know definitely when I was representing Moonee Ward for 8 years, there were a number of properties along that Puckle Street to Buckley Street strip that would quite often get tags on their fences or on their brick walls that back onto the Vic track land. They're obviously quite visible for people travelling on the train, who would then call council and complain that before they get to Puckle Street there's quite an unsightly scrawlings on the walls or fences, and then an enforcement notice would arrive. And there were some practicality issues there as well, because the person needed to get onto Vic track land to actually remove it. Similarly, there's property owners on Puckle Street that tend to fall victim to the tags up above the awnings on the second level, and that actually is not an easy removal. It's a high risk. You need people who are specialists in actually being able to get up to those heights. You can't just jump on an awning and paint it. So I'm glad that we're stepping away from that enforcement, and we're looking at supporting and engaging those residents, because that's actually going to help the problem in the long run. So this is a great draft policy, and I look forward to hopefully there being some feedback that comes in, traders, residents, that this is a common problem for, and to see if this policy is a step in the right direction. I don't think that graffiti is disappearing. It seems just to be a way of life, or a coming of age ritual for people, and it has long been a problem, particularly on those high visibility, hard to access areas like the Vic Track land. So let's actually hope that this is a good first step, and yeah, look forward to everyone's feedback. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Nation. Would any other councillor like to? Councillor Adams.
Thanks, Mayor. I also concur with my colleagues. I think this policy reflects a more proactive, customer-centric and helpful approach to managing graffiti. The paint vouchers and graffiti removal supplies to victims of vandalism will be well received, I think. And also at the centre of this, protecting our public spaces and heritage buildings is really important. Looking forward to the community feedback we receive as part of the consultation process. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Adams. Any other councillor? Councillor Isa, would you like to close? No, I will put that to the vote. All those in favour? Is carried unanimously. Somebody could please ask Councillor Hodgson to please come back into the room. Welcome back, Councillor Hodgson. We are now up to item 10.1 on the agenda, which is notices of motion, and I call on Councillor Isa to present your notice of motion titled Notice of Motion number 2022-18, Motion for MAV State Council Local Government Cultural Task Force.
Sorry, Mayor, I just have to pull it up. Sorry. Can't quite read that far. I'd like to move that Council resolves to submit the following motion to the MAV State Council to be held on the 14th of October 2022. That the MAV 1 notes that the Local Government Culture Project Insights Report concludes that to address cultural challenges and councillor conduct and bring about long-term systemic cultural change, sector-wide ownership of next steps is required. 2, as a key component of cultural change, endorses the view that we as councillors are accountable and responsible for creating a safe and healthy work environment in the same way as all local government employees. 3, establishes a local government culture task force to achieve sector-wide ownership and agreement of the issues with respect to local government culture and actions to address these issues. And that A, the task force comprise representatives of the MAV, VLGA, ALGWA, LG Pro, Rural Councils, Victoria, RCV and other relevant local government stakeholders. B, the task force identify short-term recommendations to address issues of councillor conduct by early 2023 and circulate these to the sector for feedback. C, the task force develop medium to long-term recommendations for change ahead of the 2024 Victorian local government elections, that these be circulated to the sector for feedback. And 4, writes to the Minister for Local Government to request that the Minister and Local Government Victoria work proactively in partnership with the MAV and the sector to respond to recommendations and continually improve the legislation and regulations governing councils and councillors to ensure 1, effective and timely dispute resolution processes, including standardised paths for breaches of a council's code of conduct, and 2, a sector-wide culture of creating safe and healthy workplaces for councillors and council staff.
Thank you, Councillor Isa. Do I have a seconder for that motion? Councillor Adams. Councillor Isa, would you like to speak to the motion?
This motion seeks council endorsement to lodge a motion for the State Council meeting of the Municipal Association of Victoria to be held in October. I'm just going to read the brief statement of rationale or justification that's required as part of the submission of the motion. The Local Government Culture Project, overseen by Local Government Victoria, undertaken in 2021-22, attracted feedback from the sector about how to create a safer, more diverse and representative local government sector. The purpose of the project was to identify some of the culture and conduct issues experienced and consider possible solutions. Submissions were summarised in an insights report published earlier this year. The report concluded that, and I quote, sector-wide ownership of the next steps will be crucial in ensuring that cultural challenges and long-term systemic cultural change is achieved. To prompt the next steps, this motion suggests the creation of a collaborative action group or a task force to lead the desired sector-wide engagement and ownership of the possible paths for improvement. It sets short and medium-term consultation goals, as well as highlighting the need for close partnership between the state government, LGV and the MAV to improve the culture of safe and healthy workplaces for councillors and council staff. This aligns with the work of the Gender Equality Advisory Committee, who've been instrumental in bringing the sector together to discuss strategies for attracting more women and people of diverse backgrounds to local government. And I spoke earlier this evening about the opportunity that several of us had to participate in the Leadership Summit that was held last Thursday, at which we heard from Julia Gillard and other ministers regarding the need for work to continue to improve to improve local government and the culture of local government to make it more appealing to people from diverse backgrounds. This particular motion has been developed in collaboration with several other councillors from other councils and has been shared with a number of other councils and there's been support received from councillors from Kingston, Mornington, Surf Coast, Macedon Ranges, Horsham and a number of others. So I'm reasonably comfortable. The motion has also been developed in, the development of the motion was also done in consultation with the President of MAV, Councillor David Clark. So I'm reasonably confident that the motion, confident, not sure, that the motion will receive support across the sector, and it's a really important way of progressing the project, the culture project, which is sort of stalled since the Insights report. So I'd hope that colleagues will join with me in putting this forward to the MAV.
Thank you, Councillor Isa. Councillor Adams.
Thanks, Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Isa, for putting this forward. I'm very happy to support this motion with the Mayor and Councillor Isa. I attended the Advancing Women's Leadership Summit last week, and as councillors we have many opportunities to network with other councillors around Victoria and Australia, and it's always affirming when meeting with our peers that most of our experiences are shared and that a culture change must happen in our sector to not just create safer and healthier and more respectful workplaces, but also to ultimately strengthen the decision-making process and outcomes. There are clearly issues that are systemic, and I believe the only way forward is that improvements must be made at a legislative and regulatory level. So very happy to support this motion to go to the MAV State Council and hope that the challenges that were identified in the local government culture project Insights report are addressed in a constructive, practical and meaningful way through sector-wide ownership. And I think this is a good step towards achieving this. So thank you, Councillor Isa, for putting this forward.
Thank you, Councillor Adams. Any other councillor? Councillor Hodgson.
Thanks, Mayor, and thanks, Councillor Isa, for putting this together. I'll just briefly add my comments that, we had a conversation with the MAV President, Councillor David Clark, about how the Local Government Culture Project Insights report has a lot of findings but not very many recommendations, and it's a conversation that we have to keep going, and I think through MAV and the conversation we had with David was up in Canberra, so through those sort of national networks and things, together councils and councillors across Victoria and the country need to be turning our minds to what practical ways we can be improving the culture of our sector. So happy to support this one.
Thank you, Councillor Hodgson. Any other councillor? Councillor Bedio.
Thanks, Mayor. I'll obviously support this motion because I think we can always do more and be better here in local government, but I will share that I feel I have a level of frustration that I feel there's a level of mud always being flown at local government from the state government in this respect. And I would really encourage the state government to undertake a state government culture project to see ways that they could improve in the state government, because I think we do things pretty well here in local government, considering most of us work lots of long hours for what is reasonably low amount of money, but obviously we're not here for the money, we're here for the community. And I think here at Moonee Valley City Council we have a great culture and we work very well together. But obviously we can always do more and be better, and I'm always happy to take part in those opportunities.
Thank you, Councillor Bedio. Any other councillor? Councillor Isa, would you like to close? I will put that to the vote. All those in favour? That is carried unanimously. Item 10.2 on the agenda, I call on Councillor Nation to present his notice of motion titled Notice of Motion number 2022-19, level crossings at Puckle Street / Holmes Road and Park Street, Moonee Ponds. Before you do, sorry, Councillor Nation, Councillor Bedio had declared a conflict and Councillor Bedio is just exiting the room. Sorry, Councillor Nation.
Thanks, Mayor. I'll move that Council prepares a report for consideration at a future ordinary meeting of Council regarding the level crossings at Puckle Street / Holmes Road, Moonee Ponds and Park Street, Moonee Ponds, to assist with establishing a Council position on their retention or removal and subsequent advocacy options.
Thank you, Councillor Nation. Is there a seconder for that motion? Councillor Sharp. Councillor Nation, would you like to speak to your motion?
Thanks, Mayor. And look, I will keep it relatively brief because I'm not necessarily arguing for a particular outcome here. What I am keen on doing is trying to give constituents a bit of clarity as to what Council's position is. Do we have a position from 2017 that is still our position? Do we need to update our position? How does the rollout and completion of the Buckley Street road underpass in 2018 impact our decision from 2017, which referred to multiple crossings, and whether or not there is advocacy options, given that the state government has been so far rolling out up to 85 level crossing removals as a first commitment in the 2014 state election. Now that program obviously or most likely won't be an endless program, so I think they've allocated a considerable number of those 85, maybe all 85, maybe there'll be some more that they will allocate, and if Council does have a strong position on the removal of both or one of them, that maybe it is something that we need to include in our advocacy strategy. A member of the community mentioned to me that in particular the Park Street level crossing, and this is a resident that lives on Park Street, it's not a member of the group that's advocating for their removal, was concerned that the Park Street level crossing, if Council's position was still that the level crossing should be removed, that the only option for the level crossing would be to actually just close Park Street because of the gradient, because the option at Buckley Street was not rail under, it was road under, that the sheer gradient that the train would need to travel at to get under is not possible, nor is it possible to dig out a channel there because of the houses. So if our position was to was to remove the Park Street level crossing, then it would just be to remove the level crossing, keep the rail at grade and the street get closed. Now these are all things that hopefully the report will pick up because as a councillor I'm aware of why we were advocating for a full suite, the Buckley, Park and Puckle removal together, and that was our position. But as such, now that I think it was September 2018 that the Buckley Street underpass was completed, does that now impact our position? And also trying to get some information about how it ties in with MPAC, the proposal for Puckle Street to be one way and so forth. So as the motion says, I'm asking for a report. I think it's important for us as councillors to get some information to understand if we do have a position, what the professional opinion of officers are as to outcomes at each site, and then whether or not it's something that we do need to advocate for, particularly as the state government has maybe some more removals that they'll announce, or is it something we just park for now? Thanks, Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Nation. Councillor Sharp.
Thank you, Mayor. Councillor Nation has spoke very comprehensively on this notice of motion, so I won't add anything further. Suffice to say that I'm certainly happy to support this motion to receive a report. A report can only provide us with the information to make the best decision, so certainly happy to support and look forward to receiving that in due course.
Thank you, Councillor Sharp. Any other councillor? Councillor Iso.
Thanks, Mayor. Look, I guess I come at this with a slightly different perspective, partly because of MPAC, actually, which is subsequent to the Buckley Street underpass and includes in its, I guess, the way that it discusses and configures the traffic options, includes advocacy for the removal. I'll just check the actual words. It includes exploring the potential Puckle Street level crossing removal to improve vehicle, cyclist and pedestrian circulation. And that was part of the suite of impact documents that we supported last April 2021. So I don't think that our position about the value or the potential value, or not even the potential, but the value of the removal of the level crossings at Puckle and Park has changed. I think it's embedded in our, particularly for Puckle, it's embedded in the traffic documents connected with MPAC. So my view of this is that it potentially winds back that position, and I don't think that that's necessarily in our advocacy, that's to the advantage of our advocacy. If we're seen to be wavering on something that we've actually been very clear about and very firm on since 2017. Now, whether or not it's the feasibility of that post-Buckley Street, I think is a separate question. But I think we've always been very clear about the value of level crossing removals, not retention, as is stated in the motion. So, Mayor, I'd just like to see if I might be able to move a small amendment, if I may, and I can send this through to governance. But it reads that Council prepares a report for consideration at a future ordinary meeting of Council investigating the level crossings removal at Puckle Street, Holmes Road, Moonee Ponds and Park Street, Moonee Ponds, to assist with establishing a council position on the means of removal and subsequent advocacy options. Do you want me to send that through?
You can please send that around.
Yep.
Thank you. If you could send it through to governance and to councillors. Councillors, I'll wait for that to come through for everybody before we continue for that amendment. People who are watching at home or in the chamber, we're just waiting for an amendment to be sent through. Got to make sure that everyone knows what is being proposed as an amendment. So I'll just read it out again. So the word regarding has been struck out from the original motion and changed to investigating. And then the word removal is being included after level crossings. And then the words their retention or is being struck out and replaced with the means of. Councillors, does anyone need a moment to have a look at that amendment? Or is everyone comfortable with what they can see? It's on the screen. Getting a bit bigger. We're just waiting for it to get a little bit bigger on the screen. Thank you, governance. I'll just give councillors an extra minute just to have a little look at what that is. Okay, so that amendment has been moved. Is there a seconder for that amendment? Seconded by Councillor Adams. Amendment has been seconded. Councillor Isa, would you like to speak to the amendment?
Thanks, Mayor. Look, I do appreciate Councillor Nation bringing this, because I think he's absolutely right to say that there's been talk in the community for some time about it. I guess I want to see our next steps on this really reflecting our existing strategies and policies, and I'm referring mainly to MV 2040 Action Implementation Initiative Action Number 131, which says that investigate the level crossings removals at Park Street and Puckle Street, hence the wording there, investigating the level crossings removal. Actually, it should be removals, but it doesn't really matter. So that's really using those words there from MV 2040. And as I said, if it needs to be left at removal, it doesn't matter. As I said, MPAC also has, as part of its advocacy, several references to the removal, particularly of Puckle Street. So in the public transport advocacy, it talks about exploring the potential Puckle Street level crossing removal, and that's in quite definitive terms, and it's for the purposes not only of safety but to improve vehicle, cyclist and pedestrian circulation, which is what the MPAC traffic study really looks at. And I think it's been a long-held view. In the traffic transport report, it also says council is actively advocating that the Puckle Street Holmes Road level crossing be removed under the state government level crossing removal program. It represents an opportunity to considerably enhance the activity centre from a transport perspective by eliminating a key barrier to east-west movements for pedestrians and cyclists. So again, within our MPAC documents that we carried through the chamber last April, there is that clear desire to support the removal of the level crossing for circulation and safety. It was also, there was reference to it actually in the planning scheme amendment for MPAC prior to the 2019 changes to the planning scheme. There was actually a map that listed, let's get the wording right, that listed upgrade train station and potential grade separation underground. So it was previously in our planning scheme up until those changes came through in either late 2019 or 2020. So again, post Buckley Street. So I think we've had a long, continuous, uninterrupted advocacy and view that the level crossing removals enhance safety and circulation at these places, and I am moving the amendment to keep us in line with that. If we're going to be asking our officers to do some further work, I'd really like that to be aligned with our existing strategies and policies and MPAC. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Isa. Councillor Adams, would you like to speak on the amendment?
I will, thank you, Mayor. I'm happy to support the amendment. I think I was a bit worried about the use of the word retention because, and so happy to sort of support the wording of just removal of the level crossings. Thank you for changing that. Thank you. And thanks, Councillor Nation, for the motion. I think it's...
Sorry, Councillor Adams, please just keep your debate to the amendment. Would anybody else like to speak to the amendment? Councillor Sharp.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't agree with the alternative for a number of reasons. Firstly, I'm not sure if everyone's aware, but whatever it says in MPAC, yes, we've been talking about investigating. There's always the word investigate there. That's not we are doing it per se, and there's a number of reasons why I have concerns with all that, namely that if we were to close Puckle Street and go road under, similar to Essendon, a number of shops would have to be compulsorily acquired, and a number of shops in our pretty much the heartland of Moonee Valley, Moonee Ponds, will be have to be demolished because they'd have to make way for the road under rail scenario. If that wasn't the scenario, you would have the scenario of Skyrail. Again, shops would most likely need to be compulsorily acquired and demolished. So it's fine for us to say, yeah, we want the crossings to be removed, but how the state government is actually going to achieve that without decimating Moonee Ponds is it baffles me, and we've been talking about this for quite a while over our last couple of terms at council, and I do remember a time in chambers where there was a lot of toing and froing about a motion, and I can't remember the exact details other than to remember that it was to do with the one way around Moonee Ponds Centre if the train line was if the crossing was just literally closed off and there was that one way movement around the centre. Now, at the end of the day, we've endorsed MPAC, but our 130,000 residents have not looked at MPAC. People from East Kill or people from Avondale Heights, people from Essendon that go to Moonee Ponds religiously doesn't mean that they know what's going on around the streets, individual streets. Doesn't mean that they've ever even looked, don't even know that MPAC even exists. So to march along saying that this is what we're going to do, I think is a complete and utter furphy. So I'm completely and utterly comfortable with getting a report because we don't even know the scenarios that are there. And if you think that MPAC gives us a guide on any kind of scenario, it doesn't. And if you think that our residents have had an input into it, they haven't.
Councillor Sharp, would you like an extension of time?
30 seconds, thank you, Mayor. So we really need to, we can't make decisions off the cuff like this on something so major. So all this notice of motion is doing is asking for a report. I don't know why things have to be so complicated around this chamber sometimes when there's a motion asking for a report. And I can tell you wholeheartedly that myself as a councillor that have been elected for the last few terms, I personally have not made a decision on whether to remove...
Councillor Sharp, sorry, if you want to just finish your sentence.
Yeah, remove the level crossing or retain it because that decision has not come to us. The decision has not been made by MPAC.
Thank you, Councillor Sharp. Would anybody else like to speak on the amendment? Councillor Hodgson.
Thanks, Mayor. And look, it is a really interesting discussion, and I do think, there's value to ensuring that we have a really clear council position. I would note, though, that the position is around advocacy, not about making a decision of whether or not level crossings are removed or not, because it's not within council's responsibility. But it does, I'm happy to support this amendment because I do think that the position of council has been reasonably consistent around supporting removal of level crossings, and there are a number of reasons why removal of level crossings is advantageous. The other responsibility that we do have as council is to support the needs of our community and understand the impacts of decisions of all levels of government on our community. So whilst, you know, it would be odd to me and I wouldn't support, or it would be unnatural, I think, to have a council position of retaining level crossings. I do think that understanding the impacts of the removal options is important, and understanding what the impact would be on our community, and noting, you know, just this weekend there were works on the train line and Park and Puckle street level crossings were closed for 2 days. It does bring into light, you know, that scenario that Councillor Nation mentioned, which I'm certain our community would have problems with. So understanding those and understanding what the options for removing are, you know, I'm supportive of that as an idea.
Thanks, Councillor Hodgson. Councillor Nation?
Thanks, Mayor. And look, as I said at the start, I don't want to have a debate or an argument about what should be there, what shouldn't be there. I just want to get this progressed, because we're almost at the halfway mark of this term of council, and no one's brought anything into the chambers to do with the level crossings, and our advocacy strategy is silent in regards to pushing for these level crossing removals, even though the state government program probably doesn't have much longer to go. So if this is what needs to get up to get enough support in the chambers, then I've got no issues with it. I just want to see this progress, and that's the reason why I brought it to the chambers, because if all those references are still live and accurate, fantastic. Let's chuck it in the advocacy strategy, and let's get out there writing letters for the upcoming election and trying to get some commitments. If they're not live, then current positions, and we need to make current positions. So my reason for and the reason I'm supporting this amendment, or this alternative, whatever it is, my brain's not working today, sorry. The reason I'm supporting this is just because I want to get the ball rolling, and no one else has done it. So I just want to take the next steps. We've had people come and present to us saying, what's the position? Why aren't you doing anything? And I put up my hand and say, I don't know. So that's why it's here. And as I said, if this is what it needs to get support around the chambers, then that's fine. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Nation. Councillor Isel, would you like to close?
Thanks, Councillor Nation. And as I mentioned, I thank you for bringing the motion to the chamber. And I appreciate it if you're willing to support those amendments. I'm grateful for that. Just to respond to a couple of comments that were made. When MPAC came to council in 2020, it was noted that there were about 60 or so submitters to that process. So residents have had a considerable input into MPAC, and some of those submissions were around the traffic and were around the level crossing removal. It was in fact the debate about that I think was the debate that you're referring to, Councillor Sharp, in August 2020. And so there was considerable discussion about that at the time with respect to MPAC. So I think it is a component of MPAC that has undergone some scrutiny and interrogation, and is and has withstood that. With respect to whether or not the council has ever had a vote on the matter, I did find of all things the good old Moonee Valley blog. The very first meeting I came to for the sake of the Moonee Valley blog on the 9th of May 2017, the issue came to the chamber, and there was a recommendation from officers at that time that there be a commitment around the level crossing removals of Park and Puckle Street, and that motion was carried. So I appreciate that there have been some changes to Buckley Street since then, but I think, as Councillor Hodgson said, there has been a consistent commitment to improving safety. And I'll just finish on the knocker there. Mayor, thank you colleagues for supporting the amendment.
Okay, I will put the amendment to the vote. All those in favour? That is Councillor Nation, Councillor Adams, Councillor Hodgson, Councillor Isa, Councillor Byrne. All those against? Councillor Sharp. The amendment is carried. Now, on the substantive, we've had Councillor Nation move it, and speak to it. Councillor Sharp second it and speak to it. Councillor Isa, you were speaking to it. No? Would anybody else like to speak to the substantive? Councillor Adams.
Thanks, Mayor. I'll take this opportunity to thank Councillor Nation for bringing this to the chamber. I do want to see this progressed, and I think this is a good step forward, so thank you.
Councillor Hodgson? No. Councillor Nation, would you like to close?
Thanks, Mayor, and thank you for affirming my suspicions in voting for the amendment, because I was trying to read the room and I gladly got that right, so thank you. That would have been very awkward if if you hadn't have supported it and I hadn't done that correctly.
Don't presume anything, Councillor Nation.
No. Thanks, colleagues. As I said, look, I'm not too hung up on the semantics of what's written up there. I just wanted on the notice paper and a resolution and us to give officers some direction to take the next steps. I do think we are in the midst, or we are close to, of a state election, and there may be an opportunity to really push for funding or a feasibility study or what have you if we have a strong position. So, yeah, thank you for your input and your words, and I think this will give the community plenty of assurance that we haven't forgotten about these commitments that we've made, and will hopefully enable us to take the next steps in the not too distant future. I deliberately didn't want to complicate the motion or not get support by putting a date on when the report is to come back. But I note our officers are usually very good workers, and we'll bring the report sometime soon in a timely manner. Sorry, Mayor. That's me done. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Nation. I will put that to the vote. All those in favour? That is carried unanimously. Item 11, we will ask for Councillor Bedio to come back into the room. Councillor Hodgson, I'm not sure if he just went in there. Thank you, Councillor Bedio. Now, item 11 on the agenda is urgent business. Councillors, do we have any urgent business tonight? Any urgent business? No. Okay, we'll move on to item 12, which is confidential reports, and we do have one listed on the agenda this evening. 12.1, the CEO Annual Review Report. Item 12.1 is considered confidential under the terms of Section 3(1) of the Local Government Act 2020, as it contains information relating to F, personal information, being information which, if released, would result in the unreasonable disclosure of information about any person or their personal affairs. The item includes information about the performance of an individual employee. Councillors, can I please have a mover and seconder that we... sorry, these wordings aren't quite right. That we close the meeting to the public. Moved Councillor Hodgson, seconded Councillor Nation. I will put that to the vote. All those in favour? That is carried unanimously. So everyone who is in the chamber tonight and who is joining us online, this is the time where we say goodbye. Thank you very much for joining us, and we will see you for next meeting. Thank you everyone, and good night.